tickle on something that's really valuable. My CISO and I define trust as this, and it's these three things. Number one, because trust is ephemeral, right? Trust doesn't last forever. I trusted you has been said in so many movies, right? Yeah. Okay, so trust is ephemeral. So what is trust? Trust is having and maintaining a one-to-one say-do ratio. Meaning if I say I'm going to do something, I do it. And if I can't do it, it brings me to the second point, which is have hard conversations first, right? And have those hard conversations. When you know you said you were going to do something, you can't do it, it's the worst fucking feeling in the world to walk up to somebody and go, hey, listen, Uval, I told you I was going to do this for you. I got to let you down. I can't do it. It's much easier to just let you down and not show up. And that's what a lot of people do. So one-to-one say-do ratio, try to say and do everything you say you're going to do, you do it. Have hard conversations first and be transparent, which we'll get back to transparency because I don't fully agree with that. And then the last one is having aligned incentives. And I think that's where trust falls apart so quickly, right? Like if the incentives quickly disalign, then you shouldn't trust me. If someone has my spouse and says they're going to kill them if I don't do something, I'm robbing your butt, like straight up. So trust has to have aligned incentives. In this case, our incentives are disaligned. You keeping your money, Matt loses spouse, disaligned incentives, even if it wasn't your point. So my point is that when you talked about trust, if I prescribe versus ask, I'm having a hard conversation first. Yeah. Because if I say, hey, if you guys don't buy this, then I'm going to eventually let you guys go, and you don't let them go, you didn't have a one-to-one say-do ratio. Yeah. So I like to look at things from the lens of trust and whether I'm establishing or eroding trust. If I don't do something I say I was going to do, like maybe not being able to make it to our event last time, that can erode trust. If I had not showed up again today, further erosion of trust. Yeah. Right? But I had the hard conversation first and explained that things had gotten crossed up, and we tried. So does that make sense how I like to look at life as trust through that lens of those three analysis objects? Yeah.
You know, the way I connect this to sales, again, I'm taking things you're saying and I'm sort of, that's why, because I have to understand because you said trust is about, you know, if I say something, I do something. If I'm going to say a lot, if I'm going to explain to you all the things in technology that we need to do, then you're sort of like rubbing me here. Like, I don't understand what's going on, which actually reduces trust because you're overselling. You're trying to give 100%. Me too many things. That's why even when you send sometimes price quotes, make it more simple. You know, when you're starting to like add too many things and you're trying to convince me to do too many things, like what I want to hear as a customer, when we talk about, again, you know, like with the security, like at their level, they're just keep me safe. Can you do that? And the thing is, we know that we cannot give them 100% security. So we're starting to sort of, you know, break it down and say what yes, what no. And then I'm starting to get confused and I lose trust. So we need to learn to sell trust and not features and not specifics, and really about, you know, when I talk to customers, we always think about, you know, what risk level, but, you know, I usually say, like, what risk are we accepting? You know, it's important. What risk are we living with? Yeah. And when you do that conversation with people and you say, look, we can't be 100% secure, right? Like, we're selling you here a service, but I can tell you that if you do get hacked, and you may, okay, that's not 100%, like I said, secure. What I can tell you that we'll be there. We'll be there for you, and we'll be there until, you know, until you're up and running. You have to make simple conversations and not talk about all the...
Well, that's why I like analogies, right? Like, I mean, think about what you just said, like 100% secure. Okay, what's 100% secure? Like, first, let's talk about what's a vulnerability and what's a threat. Vulnerability is something I'm vulnerable to. I'm vulnerable to bullets because I'm a human. Yeah. I have a threat if someone is shooting at me. What can I do? I can put on a bulletproof vest, right? That'll help. Doesn't help the head. I might put on a helmet. Doesn't help this section. I might put on glasses. Doesn't help this section. And the glasses aren't resilient to these type of things. Like, we never are perfectly secure to a threat, ever. Why would we lie to ourselves and say we are in any other way? Yeah. Right? We can say I've got the body armor on. We can say I've taken appropriate precautions that maybe nobody's shooting at me on a fairly regular basis. Right? We can do things like that. Anyways, just going back to your point, of making it simple, I really think there's value in analogies where someone can't learn all the pieces necessary to even understand it. Because at some point, they're just nodding their head and saying, I understand you, when they do not understand you. How many times have you looked at a technician that's going, yeah, I got you. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Bro, you don't got me. Like, help me understand how you got, like, they don't. Well, then why do we try? And so I'm a big fan. This is maybe why I love speaking directly to end customers, is I love straight up analogy-based methodologies, is that you give something someone they can understand, help them understand the context in which it applies to the current situation, and allow them to make the correlative jump that that's what you're speaking about, right? And that way you don't have to educate. Like, so I love using analogous conversation as a way to do that and make it simple. Because you can't just simplify LLM&R poisoning. You can't simplify account takeover and hijacking. Like you have to like make analogies to make you understand that. Like, if that makes sense.
I think it makes. By the way, guys, if you have any questions, I can go on. Like I haven't.
He loves triggering me. He's done it for years.
I haven't even started with my questions. I have a list of questions. I'm just going off.
In that conversation, from just an argument perspective, would be, you know what? Is it wrong of any doctor to say that losing weight's better for you as a human? Would that ever be wrong? Okay, so there's some inalienable truths. And those inalienable truths are high blood pressure kills you, eating bad shit kills you, getting heavy enough that you have overweight and obesity challenges will kill you, things that you don't treat when they come up will kill you. Now, I don't know all of these yet about you, Mr. and Mrs. Client, but I sure as shit know that we need to get you in shape, make sure you're eating the right things from a technology perspective. And those are basics. They're MFA. They're me doing SSO, they're me normalizing things, they're using prescriptive frameworks like CIS, right, to do that work. I'm not making it up anymore, I'm just doing the basic common things. And so I like that you're speaking towards that of the malpractice and diagnosis, because that is a truism. That is coming back to the maturity of our field, the other aspects. That said, me saying Microsoft with conditional access is better than you not using conditional access, that's a truism. I don't need anybody else to help me understand that, right? That makes sense?
What would you advise for MSPs to differentiate themselves? Because many of them are trying to do that with their stack or with the things they offer, like better prices. And I'm hearing here something maybe a little bit different. So you've been working with MSPs for like so long. Who are the successful ones?
Why are we differentiating ourselves? Let's start with that. Why do we need to differentiate ourselves, Gabby? Does my CPA actually try to differentiate herself from my other CPAs? Not much, other than the business service and the quality of the value and maybe the price, but not like a chase to the bottom. They're still billing me quite handily. I think I spent $670 just for my basic return.
But how did you choose the CPA? I chose the CPA.
But I want to take away
recommendations based on trust. Going back to this trust.
I agree. But the reason we have to differentiate so much in our world is because in this magical world that we live in, some CPAs can go in and charge $20 and say it's the same thing, and other CPAs could go in and charge $700 and say it's the same thing, and the customer cannot know the difference. That's why in every other world we regulate the shit out of that, so that they, because they cannot know that, have that done for them. We don't have that, so that's the first thing. So that's one of the challenges. You're not wrong though about the other aspects, and I'm going down that path for the similar reason of outcome, which is using a framework will help you survive what is coming, first off. I think that's the first statement, because they won't all survive, Gabby. I actually was, and I'm okay saying this, I'm out about this now, but somebody asked me at a conference the other day, Matt, when would you retire? You've sold a company, you've got money, you could take a break. My wife it needs my time right now, and instead I'm right here doing this. When would you take a break? When would you do that? And my answer was when 50% of you aren't in the room.
When what?
And when 50% of you aren't in the room.
Oh, okay.
And the reason is right now, anybody can just stick a sticky note to the wall. That's magical. You can start a company right now with no barrier to entry and be an MSP. That's awesome. Right. It also sucks. And I think the reality is how you differentiate yourself. First, you just need to start following some type of guidance and framework that allows you to survive the onslaught that is going to be coming. If I had my way, I would regulate you out of existence if you aren't meeting those things, first and foremost. Second, you've got to survive till then. You've got to make it. You've got to continue to grow. You've got to still differentiate yourself in the market. I think being prescriptive is hella valuable. I think people are looking for someone. In fact, if you look at a lot of the studies, like the request is, I'm looking for someone to give me guidance. I'm looking for someone to answer this. But yet we always say, why do I not have a seat at the table? Because you haven't pulled your big butt up there and pulled the chair up to the table. Go do that. Be prescriptive. Say the things we're going to do. Have a plan. Help you be better in the technology. I think the second thing I'd add to this is in our world, Gabby, everything is kind of commoditizing. Anybody been around long enough to run an Exchange server? 2008, 2010, 2013. Okay, running an Exchange server, pain in the ass. You got to have the right speed disks. It was 10K disks for this partition. You had to have the, RAID 10. You couldn't use RAID 5 because some of the nastiness, the way it was handled. Like, you had this, all the things. You had to set it up. You had to NAT the ports in. You had to manage the accounts. You had to manage security. To update it was a bitch. Like, it was a huge number of human hours to manage, like just in general, right? Now I buy a $20 Microsoft license and I turns it on and then it works as is. Like,
Yeah.
I don't have those same challenges. So there's a commoditization. The fact that I can open up Angry Birds and Angry Birds fires up 99.999999999% of the time on my phone. And I don't have to call support for that. I don't have to ask somebody for the most white glove treatment for how I handle my phone. None of that. So all that value prop's gone away from MSPs. I think that value proposition is going away. I'll be the fastest guy to fix the problems you don't have is going away.
Yeah.
I think the challenge then becomes that we have to pivot into two places. One is going to be security, in my mind, follow a framework for your clients. It'll make life significantly more scalable and viable for you going forward. For you, Gabby, that's all of Control 14. Train your humans, right? At least in CIS. Okay, so that's the first piece. The second piece, though, is because of that commoditization and because of the normalization, meaning everybody's got the same stuff now. Right? If I'm using Office 365 and you are, I have Teams, I have Word. It's the same as saying, how do two hockey teams win? Well, if one hockey team has the same size players, same average skate speed, same cut time and cut on the ice, same amount of shots taken versus shot, like all the things being equal, how do you win? I'm better coached. So what do we become? We become technology coaches. We have to actually understand the business is deeper. Actually have to work in their business more than the outside. I mean, how preposterous is it? Back to your Andrew prescription without the diagnosis. Like, how many times we come and go, I'm going to make your technology work the best. Oh yeah, man, I'm in this really cool world of oil trading with diamonds. How you can help? I don't know. I've got technology. I'm going to install Microsoft. And then you haven't fucking done anything. You haven't done anything to actually improve their world. You've just made it more stable, more predictable, those things. But that becomes a commodity once it's that way, and it's for everybody that way. So now what do? You have to be better at understanding the oil market or what makes oil traders successful or not successful. That's a terrible one to come up with. But the point being is whatever that trade is. And I'll give you a great example of that. I just spoke at a this goes all the way back to your first question too, Gabriel. But I spoke at a thing called TitleCon. It's a MSP that only focuses on title insurance companies. And I went and I talked about a seller impersonation fraud. I actually just did one. I stole a property from a guy named Chester James Reed III. Real dude, actually in Colorado. It was fantastic. Got his driver's license, everything. And I showed them how I do it. And it's like I did that talk. What's really cool is that conference is now 4 years old. They've brought clients and prospects in. They now do title work as an MSP for all title companies across the country. They have Alta involved. They have FLTA. They have all the different industry people looking to them for guidance. What do? They got deeply vertical. They got really deep into understanding that Resware is one of the primary softwares, that these are the 5 vendors that make the most money and make life easy. I'm going to partner with them, bring them into my conference, bring people into this. Like, they're actually known as a source for title company stuff. I believe that going forward as MSPs, you'll have to be deeper in their verticals. I don't know that means you have to verticalize. I think there'll be ways for you to do that, either through pods if you're big enough. I don't know the size of your organizations, but where you have a pod dedicated to this one vertical. But you can verticalize and be deeper and help them understand their software. You can also help them retain talent better and attract talent better. Things in that nature, they're going to be way different than what we normally were, but also like quite tangentially way back to what we had dreamed. Like, I don't know about y'all, but when I started in technology, it was to build something cool. It was to make something, a neat sandcastle for people, right? And now people are kicking our fucking sandcastles down, and that's not cool. And yet here we find ourselves. And so we're having to deal with the changes that come from that, changes of commoditization, more sandcastles already built for us ahead of time, and redefine what is that sandcastle now. Just very different, man. I just think things are changing due to a lot of those forces.
So this actually, so this means, if I hear you correctly, because technology is being commoditized, maybe it's time to learn more about the business you're servicing. If you start talking about them, and if you're going to be, because that's how you build going, circling just back to trust. The more you want to learn about my business, not my technology, how do I make money? What do my customers care about? The more you ask me questions that I actually, as a customer, have, I know how to answer them. I feel that you understand me. This goes to empathy. You understand me because I'll buy from somebody that understands me. I'm not going to buy from a technology expert. I'm going to buy from somebody that understands what my business does and where my struggles. And the MSPs that will do the best are those that will know how to talk business, to business people, not technology. Which
Yeah, that's
and
exactly it.
I also, I see that also with it's a little bit parallel, not exactly, but I hear a lot of people are saying that AI will take jobs. Now everybody can write something.
Oh,
And and I'm telling people, look, guys, it takes everybody and puts them on the same level. So it commoditized
yes.
writing and
Yeah,
stuff. But it doesn't have EQ, right?
that's
It doesn't
right.
have emotional intelligence. So you need to tap in. If you want to be successful in the AI world of the future, you need to tap in to the human skills that you
Yep.
may be
So it's so
neglected.
funny. It's so funny. You're landing on a similar thought. There's two things that spring to mind out of that conversation. First one
Yeah.
is my former CEO, John Street, is always one of those kind of very forward-looking visionaries in general, in my opinion. And he pulled me aside and he was asking me about where technology was going. And I went through some of the similar rhetoric. And he's like, "Yeah, man, I know where that is. I got you. How do we make it more human again?" He said, "I think the next value statement will be making it more human again." So then I'll spring off to another piece that you brought up, which is there was a TED talk where a woman did a talk about technology, about the speed of technology. And one of the things she made a comparison of, a little bit for the shock factor, but also for hyperbolous purposes, was that without tractors, we would have never had in its current iteration. And she went on to say that when tractors happened, you went from needing 17 people on a farm to make sustainability, which meant you had 10 to 11 kids, you had outward cousins and such that were part of that overall community. That's what it took to run. But once we had the tractor, you could do it with 3 people or 2. And that
Yeah.
meant that you started having this egress into the Industrial Revolution, everything drove towards the cities. And as that occurred, you suddenly found 16/17 of people unemployed. And everybody would have said, I guess the world's over. Here we are, boys and girls. AI is going to take our world. It's over. No, you know what humans have? And this is what she went on to say. She said, we have 2 things. Number one, we have an unlimited amount of greed.
Yeah.
Unlimited. We will always want more. In fact, if you look at some modern definitions of economy, it is unlimited supply and limited demand, or
Yeah.
unlimited demand and limited supply. Sorry, it's the definition of economy, right? And so when you think about that, well, then she also went on to say the second factor is humans have ingenuity, unlimited ingenuity. We are willing to be creative. We can throw in that human EQ. We can throw in that human
Yeah.
creativity and introspection to think about things differently. And she said that allowed us to create industries. Like there was barreled pickles after that. Like you could get pre-shelled peas, bro. Like you could get on a little stereograph. But the point
Yeah.
is, like, as time goes on, humans will always be creative. So when we talk about AI in general and what that's going to do to our world, it probably creates cooler stuff because
Yeah.
now we have the ability to both take that commoditized aspect of what you speak towards and level people up from a 2 to a 7 and from a 5 to a 7 and from a 10 to stays a 10, doesn't just lose the 10dom. We now
Yeah.
level everybody up and also free up a lot of humans to do things that would have been not that task. Now the dystopian in most people says, well, it's only going to free up the dumbest of humans and the worst of humans. And that's not what we're even seeing in AI right now. You're seeing super creative people go solve super creative things with super new tools, even if they are faulty and turds right now. But long term, you're going to see cool stuff. So I don't know, not to get off on that long tangent, but I do believe I do believe we're going to head towards a world where that's really beneficial for us long term. And I
Yeah.
love my AI overlords. If they ever read this later in the conversation, it's true. It's true. Yeah.
It's the worst and the best. It goes
Yeah.
together. The worst and the best always come together. It's
That is the definition of yin and yang, I think, right? So
yeah, you can't why honestly I haven't even started asking my questions, but I love this conversation. But I will put in maybe one of the questions. So when I talk to MSPs, I usually I usually find that they're not really good at marketing. No disrespects to you guys, but when I try to sort of see how they're bringing their customers, many times it's word of mouth. That's sort of how they see it coming in. Um, so,
yeah.
are there any tips, tricks? Because some people are saying, like, should I do LinkedIn? Should I YouTube? Does that stuff work? Do you think, like, what other venues that you've seen maybe that MSPs tried that brought them customers? I think that's like always the big question because everybody
Yeah.
wants more business.
So to
They
take it
want
to
to
it,
have those discussions about trust, but they won't have it unless they have a pipe of
well,
people that they can talk to.
what's one way of having hard conversations, whether or not you know someone? First, well, being a thought leader and
Yeah,
sharing those thoughts and sharing the conversations and frustrations. Well, what's neat about being in our world right now? Wait, YouTube accounts are free? Like they'll let some idiot named Matt Lee get up and make it. Wow, this is fancy. I do think there's a value in making yourself out there and being a content creator. I say that from a guy that didn't want to be a content creator. Like I didn't start down this world to do this and to live in this way. I got, I guess, in a way, forced to be where I am. I don't know about forced, but I certainly am called to be where I am. Um, yeah, let that sink in. But the point is like I think that it is a means to an end. The reason I started making content and doing social media and digging hard into social media and doing the LinkedIn thing and then tying everything and building a brand and building a persona. I don't sell anything. I literally
yeah,
don't sell anything. But I do it to get the ability to continue to influence hearts and minds and to change our world and to serve my mission. But if it was doing it for business and I was trying to sell something, the same methods work. Become the thought leader in your industry or your area or your space or your niche or your whatever you're doing. Get out there. There's a lot of reasons for it. It builds personal brand. I think there's also a unique aspect of getting on camera that people don't understand. How many of you want to go do a live stream with me in the next half hour in front of 500 people? Who's in? Let's go right now. We'll make up a topic. Everybody in? Okay. Most people aren't in. D-Way's in. Okay, I'm in. Awesome. But most people aren't. And there's a reason for that. We're scared of it. I was scared of it. I couldn't listen to myself on recording for the first year. Like the first year that I would listen back to these type of things, I couldn't get through 30 seconds. Not couldn't listen to it. Couldn't get through, I sound like that? Holy hell, Hannah. And there's a buddy of mine, Eric Bowles, that's doing a movement on something like this, but trying to help people understand and unlock their inner creators. And he spoke towards like, hey, you have these bones in the inside of your ear, and like, if you don't believe me, like, cover your ear holes up and listen to how you sound. You sound different, right? Everybody else has been hearing you for years, and everybody doesn't just spontaneously laugh at you for how you talk right now, do they? Like, maybe they do. I don't know it, but usually not. And so the point is, just because you sound funny to yourself, but it took me a year to get to the point where I was okay even listening to myself. So why do I say that? Because it means that everybody has to be in that same boat. They have to be some degree of nervousness, of putting yourself out there, of being in that space. It's just a natural human fear. So when you go do that and someone is the recipient of it, strange shit happens. They go, Matt, you're that guy on YouTube. You're willing to do these things. You have that, you're the LinkedIn guy. I'm just you. I'm no different. I'm nervous. I'm scared. We're all the same. But yet, why have they put me on a pedestal like that? Why is it that famous people become famous people? It's because they're seen. They put themselves out there. They overcome that innate fear that people have to do the same. And so I think there's just an interesting human behavior that if you put yourself out there for your clients and you put yourself out there and get on stage at Rotary and go do those things and get people are afraid to do it. And as a result, they look up at you for doing it, right or wrong. Um, anyways, just my thoughts
So
on
I'll add a few tips that from my experience.
that. Yeah,
So before I started doing video and writing posts and all of that, I was also nervous, like in my first posts were like horrible, I think.
mine still are horrible. So it
Yeah.
works out.
No, I got better. But still but what I've done at the beginning, which is really helpful for anyone, seriously. And I tell that all the time. If you want to have conversations with your customers, right? Um, you don't have to post on LinkedIn. You can comment on what they say. Like you go to
Yes.
your customers, you find them a list of potential customers, and you help to lift them up. You comment something meaningful, not something stupid like, wow, this is really interesting. Like
Yeah, you got
take
to be
the
careful with
time,
that one.
show something thoughtful. And if you spend an hour a day, you'll be able to write 10 comments after doing a little bit of research. You do that day after day for 2, 3 months, everybody knows you. Like when you start to message people later, they will accept you because they've seen you before. You had those
Yep,
touches before. You were
accurate.
bringing value to them. The value wasn't only what you commented, you helped them with visibility. You always are there commenting and writing. So that's what I started to do to build my network. And by the way, that's the best way to build my network, even more than posts, because people care more about you commenting on their stuff than the other way around. So
And
if
that
you
goes
can
back to
follow,
business too, right?
yeah,
Like you letting people talk about them. That's what people want to talk about is them. That's
yeah.
the number one thing they wants to talk about is them. So yeah, that always correlates. And I will say you got to be careful with that commenting. It has balance of too much and too disingenuous, and you'll lose there too.
That's why you have to have
Um,
meaningful. You can't
yeah, to your
just like,
point, that's why it has to
well
be
done,
real.
well done,
Yeah,
done,
yeah,
well done. Yeah, it has to feel real. And the cool thing is that you can take the time and research before you post something. You don't have to be an expert. And with ChatGPT and AI, you can actually learn about the topic pretty quick.
you get
Put
80%
in.
correct. You know what I mean? Like you might hallucinate a smidge, but it's all right.
Here is a tip for you guys, something that I've learned recently that is freaking amazing about AI, off topic, but it works. So when you want to learn something new, or you want an opinion from ChatGPT, what you can do is create a council of different profile. So you tell ChatGPT, I want, you're this person, now you're this person, now you're this person, now you're this person. Each one is different. One is a CISO, one is a CEO, one is a graphic designer. Like you create a council of different people, and then you ask ChatGPT, you know, I need some guidance about this. I want you guys, all of these profiles, to chat about it and give me a conclusion. What do you think? And you see that happening in real life. That's freaking
That's
crazy.
cool.
You get a council of different profile chatting and debating with each other. It's pretty cool. And then you come up with something with different vantage points. So this is sort of next level AI, something that I've learned recently.
That's
It's not
fun.
that easy. You have to build those profiles, but then when you do that, you let them argue about a specific topic, and then you see the cons, the pros, how different people see it. Somebody that is not from the business, somebody that is from the business, they're sort of simulating a conversation. Really,
That's
really
fun.
cool. I don't even know how I got into this, but that's something that I wanted to share. Just something that was nice.
Yeah,
Um,
somebody said, Andrew said, starting customer conversations, what are you trying to protect? Yeah. What matters to you? What makes you money? Tell me how you make money is one of my favorite questions. Tell me how
yeah.
you make money.
So something that also Chris Roberts used to say that, I love when he did risk assessments, he was like, if I have the keys to the kingdom for 24 hours, like what's the worst that I can do? Like the worst,
Yeah.
how do I take your business out of business? Like I want to understand the core
Yeah. Yeah.
thing
It's a great way
that,
to think about it.
yeah, what is the core things? And when I talk to customers, I usually, and you heard me guys say that, let's start protecting that. And, like we have to accept some risk. Let's not accept it elsewhere. But, in this place, let's protect that. That will be a good start, instead of trying to solve everything. I think, trust is
Well, and
when
it
you,
also matters though for trying to understand the business. Back to that point of being an MSP that has to know more about the business. The more you can get them telling me, well, and I'll go back to my concrete truck example I've done in this one. I'll go quickly on it. But I had a concrete manufacturer that made concrete roads for a middle of the United States state. They did almost all of the roads, right? Concrete because it swells and freezes and gets hot and has too much swelling, so it's not asphalt. And I asked him, I said, Ron, what makes you money, man? I said, tell me how you make money. Tell me a day. He says, I need a concrete truck on that job site every 30 minutes with the proper mix of ash, aggregate, water, and cement to meet the testing standards that'll be required for that job without fail every 30 minutes. If I miss one, I could have the whole pour go bad and I could lose 2 million bucks. I said, okay, cool. I said, tell me how you protect that in your world. I said, what happens if you lose a truck? They said, don't worry. I got extra trucks with drivers sitting there waiting at the depot to go. Not a problem. What happens if you lose 3 trucks? Don't worry. I have call-up reserves. I actually have ability to have more trucks. I have a leasing agreement. I have a shop. I can fix trucks. In fact, I decided to bring that all in my own self in-house. I can manage it. In fact, I have 3 bays. I can keep 3 trucks in there at any given time. Awesome. What about mechanics? Nope, got my own people. What happens if you lose the tracking software that keeps them at the right place at the right time? Do you have manual processes to go back to make sure that the right aggregate's making it into the mixer? Or is that even doable? What happens if you lose that? I'm screwed. What kind of resiliences have you put into that? Well, I don't know. That's y'all's job. Okay, let's really talk about how you make money, right? And I love digging into that example of like asking where they make money, how does it happen, and then digging into those operational processes that drive it down there that all lead back to the same systems that their happy, juicy little fingertips are landing on, right? And I think that's the point of what I like digging into that from that perspective on how we look at risk. Same thing as Chris Roberts from that perspective. But
And also it shows that you're not trying to sell them too much, because when you say everything is risk, by definition, it sounds expensive. You're going to cost a lot. You don't care about, like, it doesn't sound professional. You're just going to try to scare me. When you go in that route and you sort of like hone in on that single component right now, it sounds more doable.
yeah.
It sounds something that...
Now, what they'll learn, and you all know, is that it's on a giant pile of sand. The whole freaking thing's trash, and you're eventually going to have to fix all that shit. But you're at least letting them feel comfortable with where we're starting from, right? I think that's the point.
I think that focusing on where to start from.
Yeah,
I think so many people are doing risk assessment where they, instead of a tabletop conversation, like you just sort of mentioned, just an honest conversation, they're running. We have to like run a scanner. We have to run this.
Yeah, I'll tell you all the vulnerabilities of all the stuff that may or may not matter.
And then you show them a report with a lot of red, and you tell them it will cost you this much amount of money and this amount of time.
Yeah.
So
and here's the reason: they're always willing to invest money in making money. They are never willing to invest money in not losing money. Yeah. Right? Like, I'm willing to take a risk. I had a CEO tell me once when I was talking to her about risk, and she said, Matt, I think you have to understand there's a fundamental problem here. And I said, what's that? She said, when you think about it, as a CEO, my one job is to take risk. My one job, my job to that board is to take risk and get reward for that job. They have to be the right risks. They have to be calculated risks. But when you come in and say, I'm here to reduce risk, you're not making the same language I care about. I'm here to take risks as a company. That's my job, to make money as an executive. I don't know that she's fully right, but I will give her some credit points of the understanding of that we have to speak towards the profitability. And when you think about that dump truck situation or that concrete truck situation, building that shop cost $2 million or $3 million, but they spent that $3 million to ensure that they would continue in receiving the other $40 million. We haven't done a good job of helping them understand that positive side of what we're actually doing here is ensuring that this stuff functions the way that it drives their business to success. Yeah. And that's
founders
the other
and business owners are risk takers by nature.
100%. You as well.
Otherwise, we wouldn't do it. We wouldn't take. So
we go work somewhere.
Talking to me about not taking any risk is like, okay, you don't understand who you're talking to.
Like, if you don't take the risk, you can't get the reward. That is why when you go work somewhere, you get limited reward by comparison to being the executive who owns the business if it does succeed, right? That's the delineation.
So what do you think about MSPs themselves? Because I
think they suck, Gabby.
Maybe not the guys here, but I've seen a lot of MSPs that you have to convince them that security is important.
So again, 50% don't have to make it. Although I did say that to my kids my whole life too. I'm like, two of you, 50% don't have to make it to adulthood. But I think that MSPs that I have to convince don't have to exist long term. I think it's so in front of you that you're going to have to at least protect yourself. You're going to have to do those things yourself. The challenges are more complex than that, though. You have the challenge of no barrier to entry. That's the first statement that I've made before. There needs to be some level of regulatory existence for us to exist. But the other piece of this is the challenge of economics. I did a talk at GERCON last year called MSPs Suck, but the world without them is worse. And I basically articulated that SMBs in most companies are SMBs in the United States and even more in Europe by a long margin. Most companies are SMBs. They spend maybe 7% of their top line revenue, 7 to 9% of their top line revenue on technology. That's all technology. The laptop, the alls of it. And now here we are trying to do both securing that and managing that in a number that is probably less than it should be. And I've never met an SMB that stayed in business that didn't have money to double or triple their security spending after an event. And they still did fine. They still had great earnings reports. My point is, the economics of it are that most businesses don't spend enough on technology in general, even though it runs their world. And that is a guiding force that drives some of the economics of being an MSP. In fact, in the talk, we basically said, why the fuck would you want to be an MSP? What a shit sandwich. Like, you're stuck between knowing the death is coming and the things they need to do and trying to convince people that don't give a shit to try to make a living. It's nothing but stress. It's anger all the time. It's gives and takes at all given times. Sophie's choice is like, why would you want to be an MSP? And so the argument was really in that the MSPs really are the saving grace for the SMB in our world. If it wasn't for you guys and me in my former life as MSPs, SMBs would be way worse off. They would not be okay. Right. And so I think that's the point. But I do think taking away that complexity and fast forwarding 5 years, 7 years, you just won't exist. Like if you're not at the state where you're starting to move forward through this and work through the 2 years it's going to take you to get where you need to be in your own practices and the ways you're doing things, you're not going to be ready when it's time to monetize that in a way that's meaningful long term. And don't get me wrong, Ford has made billions of dollars. GM has made billions of dollars at being at the right place, enough density, enough size to take the regulatory weight and move through the challenges and continue to make profit as they started to reap the rewards of being the only 7 players making cars at the time. And I think that's where we really are as MSPs right now, Gabby. Like your haves or have-nots. There's a chasm forming, and you're either on one side or you're not, in my mind. And most of your clients are on the losing end of that chasm. Most of your clients are the infrastructural numpties that have tons of infrastructure and tons of brownfield and can't walk their way out of that tech debt. So at some point, and I made this statement, and I do have to go because I have back-to-backs, but I made this statement at one point, like if I started another MSP, I would only take identity-centric companies that were SaaS consumers that I could scale with automation, that I could make much more valuable, and then lean into verticalization with those. And I don't have to bet on the loser that has all the mass. I can bet on the winner that will win in the future because of those things. So anyways,
I think that's key what you said. Just to wrap it up, I think just to point it out, not to wrap it up. We also have to find out if the customer is good for us, if there is a match. It's always, we always want like any customer, we can do anything. No, there has to be
and
a
only
match.
in the beginning. Later, that's poison.
Anyways, guys,
nice to meet all you.
I could have gone on and on and on, but
you know I
very
can.
much.
Yeah, I can go for hours.